This is the Baymont Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we continue our discussion of Season 4 of The Chosen with Episode 2.
This was a long one. This was a full-length movie by the time we were done, like an hour and 20 minutes.
It was, 81 minutes. Definitely well into the feature length. I mean, not quite as long as a lot of modern movies, but certainly a long episode. But before we get into the episode proper, Marty, I have a couple of things.
A couple pre-spoiler horn stuff. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, so there's some Chosen news that came out in between our episode that we recorded before and now. And so I wanted to get your take. Are you aware, Marty, that they are doing some new shows?
I didn't necessarily know. Tell me more.
They have started a whole studio, a Chosen studio, and they have 5 new shows that they have announced.
Fascinating.
Let's get your hot takes, Marty.
Okay.
The first one is The Chosen in the Wild, an unscripted limited series with Bear Grylls.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you know that L. Grover Fricks has helped out Bear Grylls on one of his episodes about his time in Israel? Did you know that?
I did know that. I was part of the initial conversation with that.
That
wonderful. Is not yet out yet, but that is not this.
Okay. Something else. Okay.
When I first saw that, I was like, L, but different thing.
Okay.
Second one is The Chosen Adventures, an animated show about 2 kids who meet Jesus.
Okay.
All
right.
Then we have Joseph, a limited series about Israel's founding family.
Now, is this like the same production team? Is it Dallas Jenkins? Is it like who's behind all this studio work?
I don't know exactly how all that's going to work, but it is all under the Chosen umbrella. They've created their own new studio that is 5 and 2 studios.
Okay.
So it's all under this umbrella.
All right.
Then we have The Book of Moses, a 3-season drama on the major moments in Moses' life.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
And finally, we have The Way of the Chosen, the Book of Acts with some of your favorite Chosen characters.
See, I just said in my last Turkey trip here recently, I was thinking about a lot of these characters that we study in Turkey, these disciples that now, you feel like you've met them on this show if you're following The Chosen, like you feel like Philip, even though is this the episode where they change? It's next episode where they change the Philip character, whatever it is.
No, it is this episode.
Is this? Yeah. Oh, it is. I remember that, walking on their way to Caesarea Philippi is where we see him first. Yeah. So one of the comments I made was, dude, if they did, I'm pretty sure the 7 seasons, whatever they have, is just the life of Christ. I don't know. Somebody made a couple comments about what they plan to do with the last season, but if we miss the opportunity to do a follow-up on what happens to some of these characters, because some of their stories are just so moving of what happens to them in the gospel and in the book of Acts and beyond. Boy, what a gut-wrenching opportunity to tell their stories. And it dawned on me in Turkey this last time, and I thought, goodness. So the one about the book of Acts, I don't know if that's what they're doing or whatever, but that's very interesting.
So I don't know, just putting it out there that we are aware of these things. I don't know to what extent or if at all we will cover any of this stuff, but
no promises,
but color me intrigued for sure.
Color me intrigued. Absolutely interesting. I didn't know that.
I also had a couple of follow-up items from episode 1.
Okay.
I ended up watching the roundtable discussion with their scholars, and a couple of things that they commented on that we did not touch on. Everyone was impressed that they cast an older actress for Elizabeth.
Sure.
Talking about how all the times I've seen it portrayed, it's she could be young enough.
Oldish.
It's always on the line. And they're like, nope, no doubt. She is way too old for kids. And yet she was. And so everyone was enjoying that. We didn't comment on that. The anointing oil, the whole thing about Zebedee, having that oil business.
Yes.
Rabbi Sobel made a comment that he thinks the actual anointing oil, not necessarily the other oil that they might have used in the temple for other stuff, but the anointing oil specifically would have been made by the priests.
I would assume that's right too. Yeah, absolutely.
And then Father Guffey commented on the whispered request from Salome and made a similar comment to what you said about she would have said it out loud in front of everybody.
Okay.
That's what bound him to it. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they were on the same page there. And also, I cannot believe this it was not in my mind in a solid way, but I went back and checked the text. It was Herod's birthday. It wasn't a wedding.
Yeah, that's right. Now you say that. That's right. It was his birthday.
I'm like, what? I just felt like an idiot when I actually looked at the text.
Sure.
What do you know?
Yep.
So hopefully I've learned my lesson and won't make any more mistakes like that. But hey, let's be realistic. It's probably going to happen. So
you and me both. You and me both.
All right, let's hit that spoiler horn and get into it.
Let's do it.
So we start off with this like long zooming shot, like way wide shot of this like open field, wilderness, mountains thing. And there's this character standing there. As it zooms in, we realize it's Jesus. He's alone out here. And then John the Baptist appears, walks to Jesus, breaks his chains, and John gestures, which I'm wondering, Maggie and I had this discussion, like what exactly was John trying to say when he made that gesture? But Jesus kind of nods and then he wakes up.
Sure.
What's your interpretation on that gesture?
And I don't know. I don't have a hard conviction. I chose to see that as we talked before in the podcast about when Jesus kind of makes his remez while John's in prison. He leaves out the fact that the captives will be released. And John ends up dying in prison. And that was kind of Jesus's point. And I saw that as a, hey, I'm released now, that kind of a thing. I don't know if that's what it meant, but that's how I chose to read it.
Turns out Dallas actually said that his explicit idea with that gesture was that John was saying the way is prepared. So
okay,
go ahead.
There you go.
Which, sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not in the text of the show, though. So I think that is open to interpretation.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I'll take that freedom and liberty and use it.
Yeah. So Jesus wakes up. He's in this, I guess it's a bedroom. I don't know, but I want a bedroom like that. What amazing production design this room is.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
My goodness. The bookshelf things lining the wall with all the scrolls on it. Like, man, it's just a beautiful room and beautiful set.
Yep.
So fun little thing there that I'm sure they had a good time putting together. But then Andrew comes in and he's struggling to know what to think or feel or do or anything. And Jesus eats some stale bread and makes a comment that it tastes like Elijah's bones, which is apparently an ad-libbed line. That was pretty great.
Nice. Okay. Nice.
And then they have this conversation about like, oh, laughter and tears are closer than ever at a funeral.
Yes.
Emotions are tender, all of this stuff. Like, there's no one right way to grieve and to deal with this.
Yeah, I have I have like a half a page of notes just on the comments. You've basically referenced them all. Like they're just such good conversation on the topic of grieving, which is something that The Chosen has done really well. Like there's the whole task of telling the historical story of Jesus in the Gospels and all that. But then there's everything you tell in between the historical or textual references and what you're going to do with that space. And it's just another example of how well that they've navigated that and leveraged those spaces to have really meaningful biblical conversations about these. It's very pastoral in the way that they use those spaces. And I thought, there was just some great, just cool little bombs dropped in that back and forth that were really cool and not critical or essential, but they capitalized on an opportunity there.
Well, and for me, I feel like I don't really know how to grieve well. And so to be able to see some examples of what that might look like and the conversations about it and trying to like work my way into a healthier way of dealing with that, I think is great.
Yeah.
And they end it with like, hey, it's traditional to sit Shiva in the home of the person, but where was John's home? On the road. So let's go for a walk.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. It was a cool little connection. Yep.
And then it's into the credits. So then we have Yusuf, who's quoting Kohelet, a term that our podcast listeners will soon become very familiar with if they're not already familiar.
Yeah, Els talked to us about it, but we got a series coming up from Mr. Basse. But yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was great that they have Yusuf quoting in context. He's putting on his Pharisaical garb. Mm-hmm. And you can just see his heart kind of knowing who this character is. And I think who this character is going to become by the time the story's over. Like he's got this heart of like, I have this. Let me just remind myself of what this is. This is just vanity. So as I put on all my Pharisaical vestments, I'm not aware that the Pharisees would have said that every time they put it on. I interpreted that as a choice on his part of what he's reciting maybe he does it every day. Maybe that's what he's reciting that day. But I thought, how cool. Like, this isn't where I find my hope. These are just vestments, just a role that God's given me. Interesting.
And at one point, he takes a key out of his drawer and kind of looks at the key and puts it back. And we'll find out later that that key opens like a little lockbox kind of thing in the wall that has some money in it, apparently. We don't even, I guess, know for sure. It just seems like a bag of coins or whatever. I don't quite understand why he's looking at it in this moment, though, necessarily.
Yeah, only with knowledge of what comes, and I think it's later this episode.
Yeah, it is at the end of this episode.
Is that where he says, I'm going to do the one thing I've never done, or I said I would never do? Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
maybe he was already thinking about that, in this moment.
Yeah. Like he's wrestling with, I think this time is coming, maybe. And I don't want to, but I think it's coming. So maybe that's why he has that. I don't know.
But then we see use of counseling a man, apparently named Nathan, who can't seem to sleep. Jairus enters. They kind of dance around the idea of the miracles in the culture at this moment.
I'll just break in here and say this. I like, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I like how they're portraying Yusuf as like, he's a Pharisee, but he's got a pastoral heart. He truly does care for people. Like, this is the second time that, maybe probably more, the second time he's really pastorally, he's not just giving people superficial Pharisaical advice. Like, he's really trying to pastor people, shepherd people that are under his oversight, his care. He even says, I'll pray with you. He makes that commitment. I'll pray with you every day. Actually, I probably jumped ahead of you because you weren't quite done doing the scene. But
oh, no. That's, yeah.
I love that part of what they're showing about who Yusuf is. I just like that.
Yeah. And I on that idea of like, some Pharisees being more pastoral than others. Like I'm thinking back to our recent Q&A where Reed was on, and he was talking about like, okay, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to talk about Midrash or Jewish stuff, so don't ask me about that stuff. And he's like, I'm more of a pastoral kind of voice.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily how we typically talk about like Reed as like his role in the team. But
sure.
I love that he called that out. And I think just the same thing here. Like some of the Pharisees are just going to have different strengths, and it's really cool to see Yusuf doing that, and also just that he doesn't have any easy answers for anybody.
Yeah, totally.
So then Jairus does come in, and he has news from Jerusalem. We hear that Shmuel is being promoted, and we also hear that Nicodemus is AWOL.
Explains why we haven't seen one of my favorite characters in a while. Probably needed to step out for a season. He better be back.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine him not coming back. Yeah, that would be a real shame. But yeah, we do have, we have the new actor for Philip, and we've had a couple of changes for Big James. And honestly, it's like, man, that's a bummer, because especially Philip, we had the other Philip for quite a while, and I just really liked his whole demeanor, and I'm sure I'll get used to the new Philip as I got used to the new Big James. But it's almost amazing that there hasn't been more turnover, because
sure, we're
talking years and years of production and like trying to have the continuity, and so I understand the struggle that it must be to keep the group together as it is, and so bravo on really such little turnover.
Yeah.
But then we're with Quintus, who's sitting for a bust, and Atticus enters. He wants some information on Jesus. They're, making jokes about Quintus's likeness and whatnot. That was pretty great. I don't know if that is necessarily the kind of humor that would be common, but sure, why not? Atticus suggests that war is coming. He sprinkles in some Latin, which I thought was interesting. And he makes this statement: "Don't become infamous for overseeing the town where a revolution started."
Which there's some more stuff coming up in the next episode. I'm trying to do some background study on what I might not know about Quintus, because I definitely do a lot with this character. That's either what they're just choosing to do artistically, but I'm trying to figure out what I can dig up historically. But obviously, just within the biblical text itself, I love that, becoming infamous line was, if there's nothing else other than the Gospels, that's still clever because of the reference to Quintus in Luke.
So then we have Jesus leading his disciples up north. There's a lot of speculation going on about where they're headed. Thomas and Rama approach Jesus to share their plan, and Jesus kind of struggles to respond. And I'm thinking, like, like, oh, is he just looking ahead like, are you guys sure you want to get into this? Because it's going to be tough. Like, I'm thinking of Paul talking about like, hey, if you're not already married, like, don't do it because it's just going to make things harder. I don't know if that's like what's in his mind, but then Thomas makes this comment and Jesus rebukes him and talks about like, oh, divided households and then it kind of closes that scene with Simon taking Thomas away and saying, yeah, you actually, if you're going to do this, you do actually have to get Rama a gift. I know you made an agreement where we're not working it that way. We're going to do things a different way. But yeah, big conversation there with the, I feel like this makes a lot of sense of the divided household comment that I've struggled with growing up reading that passage.
Yeah, there's a lot in that scene. I love, there was a reference right at the beginning as they start taking off and they reference the headwaters of the Jordan. There's all this, which it's those pieces of conversation that I keep historically geeking out over and just impressed by The Chosen because they don't need to put that in there. But I grabbed stuff like I didn't even think about the fact that that's where Joshua ultimately claims victory over the Canaanites, which just adds to Jesus's reference that's coming up in that story.
Yeah.
I'm totally adding that to my curriculum. Fantastic. Loved that connection. Loved this whole Thomas Rama engagement, the Kiddushim, all of that stuff that's coming up. I loved, boy, that moment. Just great acting, I felt like, and shooting of that scene where they're kind of like asking Jesus and obviously kind of nervous and, it's not what you came here to do. And he turns and I'm like, yeah, like he doesn't want to like upset. Like what a way to dishonor the Father. And just totally, when I watched that the first time, I was just stunned. Like his response, like, no, you're wrong. Like just the whole acting, the delivery of that scene was so great when he says, this is what I came to do. And then a great way to work in that teaching. It'll happen again in the next episode. I haven't come to bring peace, but a sword. It's such a hard teaching to figure out what to do correctly with Jesus, but a great way to work it into a context where you're like, yeah, there you go. That's a great way to understand that. It is what Christ came to do.
Yeah, and Z's look when he says, I came to bring
I know, yeah.
And he's like, yeah. I mean division, Z.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a lot of notes in there, but just it's a great scene. I loved that scene. It was maybe my favorite scene of that episode.
Yeah, Jonathan Rumi, again, I think I've said this before, but the acting that he does with his eyes alone is on display really well in this scene, among many others. But
yeah, and I just thought about it. It's my favorite scene in the first half of the episode. It can't be my favorite scene of the whole episode. Come on, Marty.
All right. All right.
I should also say, it just dawned on me, I said Quintus referenced in Luke, and I'm thinking Quirinius, which probably I would assume isn't the same person at all. So my brain has been making Quintus Quirinius, and I don't think they're the same person. So you said at the beginning before the spoiler horn, like, you're not going to try to be stupid and make those mistakes. So here I am making the mistakes for you.
Luke 2, this was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria.
My brain conflated those two characters. I don't think they're supposed to be. I think Quirinius and Quintus are two different people.
Yeah, because that would have been earlier anyway.
Yep.
I mean, certainly as portrayed, Quintus is relatively young.
Yeah. Nope, probably not the same person. I'm an idiot. Next scene, Brent.
Okay. I just gotta double check the text a little more often. So I figured I'd at least look that one up.
Yeah, me too.
So then we jump over where with Shmuel, he's being fitted for some new clothes. Yanni's making all of these wild statements about it. Shmuel is just like, come on, man, leave me alone.
Yeah, I love the complexity of his character because they're not just making him a bad guy, a villain, this corrupt Pharisee, just like they're keeping some nuance. He's no Yusuf, but he's no like Pharisee that's just totally lost down the rabbit hole. He still has problems with the corruption. He still is like, no, my heart is still trying to do the right thing, even though he's off track, like whatever. Like a great character development there. Love it.
Yeah. And he reveals to Yanni that, I actually spoke with him and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And
right.
He's just struggling to reconcile what's going on with this.
Yep.
And then Yanni's just like, you know what? Forget about it. relax. Shammai's address is going to make sense of the whole thing. Don't worry about it.
Totally.
So then we're back with the disciples. They're continuing. They pass the road marker for Caesarea Philippi, and now they all realize where they're going. Nathanael's irritated about the destination. Philip's trying to encourage him. They come to a shrine. Little James and Thaddeus are explaining it to Matthew, which I love, like Matthew being our audience surrogate here. Like,
yeah, sure.
Hey, what's the deal with this place? Why is everybody upset? What's going on here?
Yep.
As they walk up, Philip comments like, "Oh, hey, welcome to the gates of hell." I don't know. How do you feel about the red buildings, Marty?
I didn't have a problem with. I actually loved seeing them depicted with color because that, like, I think you got to see when we were in Laodicea this year. We found some of the murals that sat on the edge of the agora in Laodicea, and they utilized a lot of red. I don't know if that's because of the ease of access to the pigment or whatever, but it seems to be a color that was really dominant to be used in that way. So I didn't mind the red at all. Everything in that scene was just perfect, minus the temple all the way on the left. Like, we now know that wasn't there. We've known that for a while. That the way they depicted it is exactly how the site, when you're on site at Caesarea Philippi and you're looking at the signs, they depicted it exactly like the signs do. But we know the temple on the left is actually about not quite 3 miles away, maybe more like 1.5 or 2 miles away, at another location that I take people to on our Israel trip. And since then, they've done more work during COVID at that site where they found what did sit there. And there was more of not the large Roman temple, more like the shrine they saw when they were walking in. More than that, like a temple, but more ordered around that idea than the large Roman structure that you see all the way on the left. But my point being, they nailed that. They nailed that according to the archaeological team that runs that site. And there's a whole lot of discourse out there about where that stuff comes from. But the archaeological team there has pieced together some stuff. We got church history references. Josephus is the one that little James is talking when he walks up about how they put a rock down on a rope and they couldn't find the bottom. That reference is in Josephus. Eusebius talks about it. There's 2 other church historians, and I'm going to blank on their name, but lots of references there that help us learn a lot about what's happening at Caesarea Philippi. And they just nailed it. They nailed the depiction of it. I was stunned actually when I saw it. I was like, oh gosh, that is exactly what you see when you go there today. So pretty well done.
Yeah. The red definitely felt weird to me the first time, but yeah, in the intervening time, going to Turkey and seeing those murals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so many cultural things packed in there. And Dallas in the roundtable was talking about their struggle to, like, how do we portray this in the way that we want to portray it without jumping our rating up to an R?
Yeah, sure.
For this show. And so, yeah, definitely, a lot of allusions to things, a lot of, comments where you're expected to, like, make the mental leap to what they're talking about.
Ray talked about a very similar thing when he did his video back with Focus on the Family years and years ago. They had the same exact.
Yep.
And he taught us that in person about how they had a team come in. I thought the team was from Disney, actually. And they figured out how to portray that with shadows and dancers. But it's it's a big, how do you do that for a Christian family curriculum, that kind of thing?
Yep. So then we see Shammai leading Shmuel into the council and shows him his seat, introduces him. He makes this comment about the 70th chair. Is that hey, we were just missing one and we have 70 people, and so this is, he makes 70 again? Or is it like a seniority system where the chairs are actually numbered and you sit based on, like, how long you've been on the council or something?
I don't know if we know. I don't know. So there might be things that I don't know. That's for darn sure.
Okay.
I just heard it as chair number 70 happens to be open. I had the exact same thought. I'm like, do you start at 70 and then, like, work your way up? Is it like a concert band situation? First trumpet, second trumpet.
Yeah.
Chair 70 is open. Because then later in a future episode, we're going to hear a reference where it feels like apparently there are seats open for the people that want them. I don't know.
I don't know if they're open necessarily, or if it's just like
they'll make them open, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, buddy, I know you've been in the big leagues, but we're sending you back down to AAA.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That's good.
But Shammai is laying out the details about Jesus. Shmuel learns in this moment that John the Baptist has been killed, and then Caiaphas comes in and cuts off Shammai in a very humorous way. I don't know. I think it's like, okay, settle down a little bit. But then he demands that they're going to find and trap Jesus, and like sets up this whole plan about how they're going to turn him over to the Romans, and very mob-like in the portrayal, I feel like.
Yeah, the whole scene was it like bordered on odd to me, but I actually just love how I love how they're doing those scenes, that they accomplish what they need to accomplish. Like, I loved you could hear the accusation about, like, the thing that they were really accusing Jesus of, that like people were appalled by, was the inclusion in his Havurah. He has women with him. One of them is a Gentile. He eats with sin. Like, that was just true to the biblical text, true to the cultural context. I did love how Caiaphas came. You feel the Pharisee priest tension in the room. You can feel the political differences in the room. You can feel the corruption. Like, the one Pharisee is like, hey, wait a minute. Like, this is jacked up. And he's like, I said, we're done here.
Yeah.
They have depicted that interplay. I felt it in the scene. I felt Caiaphas's presence. Like, you're like, oh, Shammai's a big deal. But then there's like Caiaphas. You're like, oh gosh, okay, this is the mob boss here. Here's the Godfather.
Yeah.
You could hear him talk about, we can't just settle for stoning. And he had all these kind of like Sanhedrin explanations, but behind it all, like, they want crucifixion. They want a Roman death by crucifixion. They almost pitched it in this scene because we don't want to be responsible for it. But if we were to add some historical context, because we want him to be labeled as a terrorist, essentially, like, all that stuff was there. All the things I wanted to see were there. And I really just was impressed by that.
Yeah. He talks about like making Jesus appear as a problem to Rome. And then he goes on to say, like, oh, Rome has their man-made laws, and we'll let them enforce those the way they're going to enforce them. Like, that's their deal, like, whatever. And then we've got our laws from God, and that's what we're going to focus on. And you know what? If our purposes line up, then fine.
Right. Yep.
And just like, it's pretty devious.
Yep.
So then we're back with Jesus. He's leading them further into the site. He calls them close. He's talking about dark places. He's talking about fear. He's talking about how John the Baptist might respond in this situation. I notice there's a few like bystanders who kind of like casually listening from a distance, but they never like come up and engage or anything. But there's, he's got a little bit of attention there, but he's mostly just kind of like standing around, and nobody's really caring that they're there. Jesus gives Matthew this look. Matthew starts writing, going into the whole Son of Man talk. And Marty, I am pleased to report that you can finally follow your instinct. Peter comes into being. You can now refer to him as such.
Nice. Yes.
But he makes the statement, and he perfectly threads that needle on what the rock represents, whether it's Peter or whether...
I don't know what the round table was like, but I was like, it was so well... I don't know how they did it, but they nailed it. It was Peter, and it was the rock, and it was the confession, and it's so well done. I was impressed.
The round table was absolutely non-contentious on this issue.
Wow.
The Catholic priest was like, yeah, of course we think that, but also like, clearly it's more than that. And the evangelical guy was like, oh yeah, I mean, but of course they're setting him up to be a leader. Like, he's clearly a leader. Like, they were just, everyone was just like, oh yeah, let's do it all. Yeah, of course.
Totally. And I loved, he even got into the Messianic secret a little bit. And I mean, they don't articulate it the exact way we would on Bema, but by any stretch of the imagination, but it was about like where I am and religious people and what they're going to do if they hear Messiah, but the pagans and what they do if they hear Messiah. And I did like that. It was geographical, and it was audience-based, and I like that conversation too.
Yeah, and interesting on that, that idea of the sod, the revealed by my Father in heaven comment that he made to Peter, and all the arguments that they had after the fact. Like, none of them ever bring that up. They're all arguing about, like, well, Peter said it, but like any one of us could have said what he said. Like, why was it him? Why does he get the name change? So it's interesting that wasn't part of their argument necessarily. They're like, well, why did he reveal it? Like, they're just like, well, he didn't, like, any one of us could have made that same statement. He just happened to be the first one to say it.
Right. Yep.
And then there's also in that scene the comment that the Messiah is not supposed to be a military figure.
Yep.
Which was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we're back with Yanni and Shmuel. They're watching the 4 horsemen depart to share this edict that came out of the council. And Shmuel is kind of mourning his role in John's death. And Yanni was like, well, I think you should probably be the one to bring Jesus into the Sanhedrin. And Shmuel was like, oh, yeah, I should. And it kind of seems to me like he's like, oh, maybe if I can get to him first, I can like fix some of the mistakes that I've made along the way here.
Yeah.
Or maybe I can change something before I make another thing that I regret.
Yeah, I'm somewhat uncommitted on these scenes because I just want to know, like, what are they going to do? Like, I can see this going a few different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I can't wait.
A lot of things to pay off later. So then we're with the disciples around a fire. They're arguing about the name changes. John makes a comment to James like, Ema cannot know about this.
Sure. Yeah, right.
And they're like, what are you talking about? She figures out everything. And then Matthew breaks off at this point to discuss Peter and the whole idea of forgiveness with Jesus. And Jesus kind of gently helps Matthew realize like, oh, you had a role in this whole thing as well. And so then Matthew's kind of like thinking through what he's going to do about that. And then we see the disciples disperse for sleep. They recite a blessing together. And Peter seems like, okay, I feel like I'm kind of getting it. He kind of has that look like, okay, I guess I made sure everybody was okay, and it seems like everything's okay, and I guess I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
I'm the rock. Yeah, totally. So my last scene that I said was my favorite is my third favorite scene, because this was my second favorite scene. The conversation with Matthew and Jesus. Yeah. Which was just so great within the character development itself. But then they didn't miss the opportunity to make some key points. I loved how they could have just really made this like a really easy Christian mechanic for wronging each other and asking for forgiveness. But there were some key things they chose put in there. This is not always the consideration, Jesus said. That was a very pointed line. Like, so important. Yeah, this isn't always how it works. This isn't always the case. It doesn't mean that if you have a wrong between your brother, you always had something to do with it. But in this case, and just, man, but I found my conviction at the end, where Matthew's like, listen, I don't want to bring this up. Look at them. They're a mess. They're arguing over there right now. Like, I'm just trying to keep the peace. And I was like, oh, man, that's me. That's me going like, I'm not going to bring up this contentious thing. Yeah. Whether it's about me and somebody else, or just like, it's not going to do any good. Like, we're all like, let's clean up this mess first. And if we ever get healthy enough, then we'll talk about it later. And Jesus's line of, that's all a facade. There is no such thing as keeping peace if there's resentment between my followers. And I'm like, all right, I'm convicted again. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, so then we're back with the disciples. They're on the road again. John is kind of theorizing like, okay, if Peter's the rock, like, what could that mean? Maybe he's this, and well, then maybe we could be this. And so they're arguing about, what their angle might be, what their role could be. Z at some point, he's like, hey, since there's only one Simon in the group again, can I have my name back? And they're like, nope. Which was great. Yeah. The kind of thing where you would expect that with a group of people who are so close to each other like that. And I love that little like humanity that they injected there. Yep. Then they come up to this vendor and Jesus is like, let's get some pistachios for everybody. And I was like I'm not a pistachio fan. Sure. I know it seems like the people who like pistachios really like pistachios. Sure. And the disciples are, I guess, on that. But I was looking into it. I was like, okay, what about this pistachio thing? And it turns out pistachios have been a snack for about 8,000 years or so. So absolutely plausible.
Yeah, a big one. Yeah, definitely a big one in the ancient world and the area of the Levant for sure. Absolutely.
Yep.
And I don't know if this was already in there or if it was still coming, but when they're talking, Andrew and Peter are talking in the back. Is that after the pistachios?
That comes right after. Yep.
Okay. I loved how they're going back. They're kind of reminiscing about the days when they were with Rabbi Mordecai. And then they reference like that odd story we talked about back in session 1 about the bridegroom of blood. And I'm not sure I did a great job teaching it, but if you remember going back there, my case was that it's a whole story about Moses' insecurity, his imposter syndrome, survivor's, like all that kind of stuff, survivor's guilt. Like he doesn't really believe his identity. He's having an identity crisis. That's what I'm trying to say. And I was like, oh, why are they referencing this story? I'm like, if they're clever. And then the very next movement of their discussion is Peter going like, who am I? Like, I can't do this. It was a story about identity crisis. And I'm like, boom, nailed it. Good work, writers. I'm hoping that was on purpose, but just nailed it with that reference.
I'm going to go with the Ayin Tovah and assume that it was on purpose.
Yeah.
So then we have Tamar asking Matthew, like, how do you decide what to write? And she's like, you must feel so honored to be Jesus' scribe. Because Matthew was also like, in his conversation with Jesus, he was like, well, why Peter? Like, he's kind of a mess anyway. Like, why him? And Tamar, not knowing this, was like, oh, Matthew, you have this special role. You must feel so honored, which I feel like wasn't even
sure.
Matthew didn't even process that in the moment, but I just loved that.
Yeah, like, that's a great point, Brent.
Affirmation.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either. That's cool. Yeah, totally.
And then Matthew gets a different look from Jesus and knows that he needs to go back and talk to Peter. But Tamar like misinterprets that, having learned about the look. And she's like, was that the look? Are you supposed to write that in this conversation you're having with me?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm supposed to do something else. And she's like, oh, man.
Yeah, totally.
But then Matthew does his apology to Peter, and Peter kind of stands there for a second and runs off.
Yep. Yeah. All the perfect Matthew awkwardness. And then forgiveness is a gift. And yeah, when it happened, the first time I watched the episode, you had this like moment of like, what? Yeah. Like this unresolved, like, and then you knew you're like, okay, this is obviously they're going to do something with this later, I'm sure. But there was this unsatisfied, what? No, you're supposed to, and just good setup.
Yep. And the pause was just like long enough where it's like, oh, is he actually going to do it now? And of course not. So,
yep.
But then we see one of those horsemen delivering the edict to Jairus. Akiva comes out and Jairus takes Yusuf in, and it was like, they're so specific and all this stuff. And Yusuf is like, you know what? This is where that comment comes in. He's like, I'm going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to join the Sanhedrin. I'm going to do what I said I'd never do.
Yep.
Presumably like leverage his father's position to buy a seat. I don't know if it's, because he goes and gets that key and he gets the bag of money out, but like, it didn't seem like it was that much money. So it's like, it seems like it would take more than that to buy a seat on the Sanhedrin, but maybe it's just like a tip. I don't know. I don't quite understand how that's going to play out yet, but
we'll give it some time. But maybe it was gold. I don't know. Couldn't tell. It didn't look close enough or pay attention thinking amount wise, but
true.
Yeah, I don't know.
Could have been a big fat diamond and a bunch of gold coins. Who knows?
Maybe it's a bag of IOUs from his dad.
Oh man. So then we're with Eden and Peter, and Peter's kind of restless, and Eden's, she's like, do I call you Peter too? And he's like, yeah, I guess everybody does. I don't know. And she's like, well, that's nice. I've never met a Peter before. You're one of a kind. That's great. And then she's just like happy and falls right to sleep. And Peter's like, ugh. And he recalls his night on the water struggling to catch the fish. And so he gets up, he goes out and he finds Jesus, and Peter, shares all of his thoughts and is laying out all these things that Matthew has done. And I love Jesus is like, you know what, some of that stuff, let's make it a little squishy. We could number this however we want, but let's just call it 7, the number of completion. He says that, in the line. And then Peter's like, well, okay, so am I supposed to forgive him 7 times? And he's like, no, 77 times, endless, without limits. And Jesus reminds him like, hey, you recalled that night on the water. Well, do you remember what happened in the morning? And we see the flashback kind of fun to see the season 1
Yeah.
chosen costumes and hairstyles and stuff. It's like, oh man, they've evolved these characters quite a bit.
Yeah, just a great scene. It's when you're taking this biblical text, there's a story that's written, and we're just so used to like either people doing really bad artistic license or people just staying strictly to what the Bible says, which makes it clunky. The Chosen has done a really good job taking a biblical text and then adding in, like making it flow, putting it in another contextual conversational context. And just a really great scene, how the pieces they added to make that teaching come together and make it flow. Just really a pleasure to watch, and relatable, moving, all the things. It was good. Really good.
Yeah. And using their artistic license to take the opportunity to explain, like, 7 actually has a significant meaning. It's not just some random number.
Yep.
So then we're back with Quintus, and he is complaining to Gaius that the Jews are too comfortable. He demands some kind of action, and then Gaius leaves, and he runs into Matthew and is sharing some of his struggles at home, and Matthew suggests, like, hey, maybe you could meet up with Jesus and see what he has to say. He might be doing a sermon soon. And Gaius was like, no, absolutely not. Do not do anything in public. Everything's too crazy right now. And then our last scene is first we see James and John, and they're going to play bigger and better for Thomas and get some kind of a gift for Rama. And then this is where Peter comes in, and he finds Matthew and forgives him and hugs him, and everyone's, standing there. Some people realize what's going on earlier than others, but lots of smiles and lots of tears and everything else going on in this moment.
Favorite scene. No commentary to add. Just great. The ramifications of it, the things that don't even have to be said in the scene about the power that this Jesus gospel-centered community, forgiveness, the power that forgiveness has to do all kinds of things culturally, socially, corporately, communally. Like, just so good. So good.
It does speak for itself. So many tears. Just about every episode. It is hard to get through without something coming out of my eyes. They have a way of making these human emotions come alive in these characters that we don't always associate.
Yeah.
In such a down-to-earth way. So
yeah, totally. Well done, Chosen.
Good episode, and we did it in substantially less time than they did. So
yeah, absolutely.
To give you an idea, this episode, man, was just jam-packed, and lots of thoughts, lots of struggles, lots of things in here. So good stuff, Marty. I think we'll just let people go.
That'll do it.
We'll get back to it. We've got This is season for us where we have 2 episodes coming out a week, so we can't waste any time.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it moving.
We'll just point people to BamOnThisEpisode.com if they want to get in touch with us. We'll say thank you for those of you who support us. Like, everything we do is made possible by the way that you are generous with us. So thank you for that, and thanks for joining us on the Bama Podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.